We are going to call the City of Deltona City Commission workshop for Tuesday, June 14th, 2022 to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Bradford? Here. Commissioner King? Here. Commissioner McCool? Here. Commissioner Ramos?
Present.
Commissioner Sosa?
Here.
Vice Mayor Bill Vasquez?
Present.
Mayor Hersberg?
Here. May we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Commissioner King, would you care to lead us today?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, commissioners and staff members and everyone that's here from the public watching on TV and online, we are here for round 2 of the budget workshop. So this evening, we have 5 things on the agenda, and Stacy, we are going to begin with construction services, building and code compliance, correct?
We are, just to give you kind of a rundown of what our plan is for this evening, because it's slightly different from last evening. So Mr. Peters took the lead. I don't think he did it on purpose. He's out of the office unexpectedly today, but most of the departments that were presented last evening are those that I directly oversee. So this evening, we have staff that are going to be presenting to you. We're going to touch base on each of their budgets, and they're going to provide you with some highlights from their department and certainly be available for any questions that you may have. And I will add as needed. We're going to start off with construction services and code enforcement services with Mr. Ron Paradise.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commission. Ron Paradise, Community Services for the record. Building and code of compliance. Just kind of an overview, budgetary overview, personnel, cost, a little bit of an increase there, just based on 3% cost of living and cost of benefits going up. Operating expenses. See, the operating expenses have come down for just the building services division. The reason for that is there's been a drop in professional service obligations because we've got inspectors out there doing inspections, and we're not paying for outside help to facilitate those inspections. Okay. And everything else is pretty much set by the finance office. Okay, we'll move along to code compliance. Personnel, we've had an increase, by the way. Code compliance is now, as of this Friday, will be fully staffed. We've had a slight reduction in operating expenses, and that's because there's been a forecast and a reduction of abatement cost, slightly. Some metrics here that code compliance and building are working on. As you can see, building permits are expected to stay pretty robust. Same thing with the number of code compliance calls for services, and we expect that there's going to be an increase, also a slight increase in building permit inspections. We're anticipating we'll probably have a few more complex building projects here besides your typical single-family dwelling unit. I'd be happy to field any questions y'all may have with regard to offices 157 and 196, building and construction services.
Thank you, Ron. Commissioner McCool, and then Commissioner Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Ron, I wanted to find out now, when we talk about the abatement cost, can we talk for a moment? Is this the appropriate time for us to talk about the rental ordinance going on?
I think that's a separate standalone matter and probably should be discussed on its own merits outside of this budgetary process. That's kind of my gut feeling on that, Commissioner.
Okay, but will that, okay. So those abatement costs will go back into this, right, into this fund here? Right, the reimbursement for the abatement cost, because if we're using it to say that the operating expenses are going, you know, because of abatement cost, like what is the what is the benchmark there? How do we know that as far as abatement cost goes? Because I thought that that has something to do with the rental ordinance.
No, it's just based on code compliance cases and the severity thereof. We've done a fair amount of abatement work here in the last year, and we anticipate that to slightly go down. And with regard to abatements, the city, as you all remember at the last meeting, there was an ad valorem tax decision for 2 properties that came up, and that's seen as a way to kind of recapture some of these costs. Other costs are going to be tied, other expenditures will be tied up in liens, of which the city may never see some of that. You know, some of these abatement costs, we'd like to recover them all, but we're not going to be able to get them all.
Okay, and I'm sorry, did you mention how many positions total for personnel?
I do have that here. We have, for code compliance, we've got a total of 23 filled spaces, and the last and final, or the 24th space, will be filled by the individual that'll be starting this Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bradford?
Easy question for you, Ron. The personnel budget for Building Services Division, obviously your personnel went up. Do you know what were we spending on, let's call third-party inspections like Universal last year? Where does that compare to where we're at right now? Because I know we stopped using those. And I have to say this, since you have stopped using Universal, I have not received one phone call of complaint on the inspection division.
Yeah, and that's one of those qualitative benefits of having in-house inspection services and versus, you know, going out and outsourcing some of these. But to answer your question, I do not have those exact numbers. I'd have to get back to you on
Okay,
that.
so do you think it pretty much wages out the increase in personnel from what we were paying Universal?
Probably not.
No? Well, I will say this, the reputation of the building services has been greatly improved because a lot of individuals were taking the third-party inspectors as our staff, and the way they were being treated, it was a misrepresentation. So since that's changed, it's really done a positive for your division. Congratulations, great job.
Well, that I can't take a lot of credit for that. I'm going to have to turn that over to Carl Lynch. You know, he's and the building inspectors themselves. You know, I kind of have, how shall I say, you know, a charmed career to be, you know, working with such great people in that arena.
No, it definitely shows. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners? Ron, how many do we have in code compliance? How many officers do we have now?
We have 2 shifts. We have 8 off, as of this Friday, we'll have 8 officers per shift.
Okay.
With 1 supervisor per shift.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? None? We can go ahead and then move on to the next tab.
So Commissioners,
Park
Mayor,
and
yes. Mr. Manning will be presenting for Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Mayor Commission. Thank you. I'm going to go over some brief highlights of some projects that we've completed, along with some programs that we've implemented based on the direction from the Commission at the last budget meeting from last year. As Mr. Peters mentioned yesterday, we have put some projects on hold. He's waiting for the ABM study to come in. Once that is complete, we'll have a more complete list for you. But here are some of the projects that have been done or will be done by the end of September. We added new ADA restrooms at Manny Rodriguez and Firefighters Park. We are in the process tomorrow of doing ADA sidewalk connectivity at Firefighters Park. You guys will probably get a picture of that on Thursday. We added a new roof on the schoolhouse at Lakeshore. We added new basketball court at Firefighters Park. We're putting a new pavilion in Veterans Park, mid-July, end of July. That'll be coming in. We'll be taking down the old one at the end of this month. We've added outdoor basketball court lighting at Harris-Saxon, Keysville, and Dwight Hawkins Park. We completed the echo projects under the park's purview for West Crowell Park and the Festival Hoop Dreams. Those have been closed out. I met with the echo coordinator Monday, so both of those have been closed out. We added new gym installation at West Crowell Park. If you guys haven't been there, I know Commissioner Ramos goes there quite a bit. You'll get to see that makes a whole new environment for that facility now that we have new gym installation. We've also, as part of our modernization process, we're replacing the wooden perimeter fencing at all of our parks. This year we've done Firefighters Park and the skate park. And we are also adding electric gates at our 3 primary facilities, Harris-Saxon, West Crowell, and the skate park. Some of the projects that will be completed that you guys just approved recently were at Campbell Park for the walking trail lighting, the walking trail PIP, the walking trail boardwalk, the replacement of pavilion number 3, and the resurfacing of pavilions 4 and 5 at Campbell Park. There are 2 projects that Mr. Peters approved that are going to carry over for next year, and that is a new playground at Dewey Boster at the front. That's due for replacement, and the Timber Ridge Park behind Dewey is also due for replacement. That will carry over into next fiscal year. One of the other tasks that we were given by the commission at the last budget meeting last year was programming. We'd already established our youth basketball program, our summer basketball program, our basketball camp program, and our youth flag football. We've added track and field. We've added a STEM program. We brought back our adult basketball program. We brought back our adult day trips. We brought back our summer camp program. We added a community card night. We attempted to add a community game night at Harris-Saxon. That got mixed in the weeds. We're probably going to readdress that in the fall or winter, probably going to be at West Crowell Park. We are planning on bringing back a couple more of our adult leagues that we used to run, adult flag football, adult softball, men's league. We currently have the senior league, which is pretty strong, but we're probably going to bring back our men's softball league, which is also very strong. And we're looking to bring back our adult co-ed kickball league probably in the winter or spring of next year. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner McCool and then Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Great job, Mark. Y'all have been doing great under the amount of pressure, and I want to, within the budget here, address a couple of concerns from my residents.
Okay.
First of all, we addressed part of it last night, and I want to say again for the record that we addressed the schedule maintenance things. You guys do a fantastic job, but just for transparency in the public, Mr. Peters did talk last night on scheduled maintenance, right? So the public can see when things are going to be maintained. And I know also this is true, right, that you are having some issues getting in some parts and equipment. So there was the appearance that we weren't doing something or maintenance-wise, but in fact, we were waiting for things to come in. Can you speak to that quickly?
Yes, one of the things you're probably mentioning is the playground specifically. We've been waiting for replacement parts for the in-ground zip line at Festival Park, along with the zip track at Harris-Saxon. Tentatively right now, they're scheduled to come in mid-July, maybe late July, but with supply chain issues right now, that's just tentative. I can't guarantee that for sure. We're hopeful, but the supply chain issues are quite a challenge, not just for our department, but I think for most departments in the city.
Yeah, thank you. And that being said, also, we talked about in our future goals as far as turning around within 24 hours our resident response time, right? When something is called in, like a customer ticket is generated, that we take care of that. And our goal is to address that within 24 hours to the public. Also, I wanted to find out about the cameras in the park. Do we have cameras budgeted for this year, or have we talked about that in the respect that not only for the safety of our public, but for the issue that we have vandalism in our parks, and a lot of times that appearance is that we're not taking care of the park, and that's not true. They've been vandalized, and so we have to turn around and order parts for it. So their communication is paramount here. So is there talk also, I think that maybe we talked about a monthly report or report to the public, like this is what we're doing and this is what's going on, right, as far as that goes?
We do have cameras at all of our parks right now. We do have a line item in our budget for R&M equipment. Cameras is under that. We do budget a certain amount for camera replacement or conduit replacement because there are incidents that happen where they do get vandalized. I think it's $6,000 or $7,000 we budget for that. So yes, we do monitor all of our cameras. Most of them are standalone systems though. They are not connected to the network because we don't have fiber at all of our facilities. We only have a few facilities that do have fiber where we can actually pull them up here from City Hall. Most of them have standalone systems where I have to go to the facility itself or somebody from IT would have to go there.
Okay, just knowing that as a commissioner, that is one of my priorities for this upcoming year is cameras in the parks for both of the reasons that I outlined. And also, my last question is there, how does the budget work as far as advertising, right? Or you guys doing what you do with the city of Deltona as far as advertising, letting people know what these changes are, letting people know if there are an issue in the park and letting them know what programs are coming up. Do we budget that through you, or is that, tell me how that happens?
I believe that goes to the communications office. We
Okay.
provide that information to communications and they send it out on social media and other aspects.
But do you have like pretty good access, if I remember correctly, regarding advertising these things for residents, yes?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have, Madam Mayor, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramos?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one question mark under accomplishments. Great, congratulations. The one thing I don't see here, it's the lasering of Dupont Field. Is there a reason for that?
We had
Because
discussed
I
that.
know, my understanding, it was in the budget to get done, in this year's budget, in order to get that lasering field, that field lasered.
That project was put on hold for this fiscal year. We had put it in for next fiscal year, and Mr. Peters, after we had discussions with our budget, decided to put that on hold for an additional year. It was 524603 is the line item for that one.
And any reason for just putting it on hold, just looking at other projects? Or, and the only reason I'm asking you, because I know at one time even our senior softball players came out here in reference to some of the conditions, and it was stated to them that, yes, it was in the budget and it would be work. So I guess I'm just wondering why we keep kicking this down the field when it was said that it was going to get done. That's all.
That's a good question. Him and I will have to discuss that again.
What's the cost?
You're probably looking at $25,000, $30,000 to laser grade the field.
25 to 30,000.
Isn't that something we can vote up here to put it back into the budget?
No, my understanding, it was in the budget, and that's why I'm asking, because the thing about it is, what we did not want to do is continue to just go throw dirt out there and just create a problem, because that was a challenge. When it rained, it gets really bad out there. So the thought is give, or at least to the softball players, be patient,
Right.
that it's in the budget and we're going to get it done and do it right, which I think we all agree, instead of just, putting bandages on it, let's get it done and get it done. But as long as I've been here, I think that conversation has been happening, and it seems like we just keep kicking it to the next budget.
It was done, if I remember correctly, I think it was done 4 years ago. We typically try to do a 3-year cycle between that and baseball, but that's been put on hold with the COVID and stuff. So yeah, we're looking to get started with that again, put it on a regular cycle.
And how often are the seniors out there playing?
They do spring and fall, and they do
those
3
fields
nights
are
a week.
also used by whom else?
Trinity uses it for their girls softball program in the spring, and then other teams use it for practice.
So, Stacy, how do we go about, if there's commission interest, to adding this into the budget? Because, we had $200,000 budgeted for Campbell Park for renovations for that building, and that's obviously not going to happen right now. So there's money there.
So obviously, part of this process is to get input from the commission to provide staff direction. So if you would like to give consensus, we can move forward with that.
Commissioners, I know there's several of you on the board. Do you want to talk about this after the 3 of you who are on the board have spoken, or do we want to talk about consensus for this right now?
Follow the train, talk about it now.
Okay?
I'm wondering if this is the time to do that, or would we be better served to do that at our next meeting when we have more information and because I thought that by the time we get to the next meeting, we're going to have more specific information about what's going on in each park and department anyway.
Commissioner King, and I would want to agree, but I think this is a great opportunity then to give, if there's consensus on this dais, to give direction so that conversation can happen prior or be put in that priority list. Because again, this is something that we talked about every single year.
And my question is the funds still in the budget for that?
For this year, are they still in the budget funds?
Not for that, but as you mentioned, there are a bunch of projects that have been put on hold, so there is money available if you guys decide to go
When was that budget, when was that line item pulled?
I think he pulled that back in January. I want to say back in
In January.
I think it was in January, if I remember correctly.
So is it the same year,
like to
fiscal
know-
year we're in right now?
Yes.
I'd like to know why he pulled it before we decide to put it on, to
Well, I
move
think
it forward.
Stacy relayed back to Mr. Peters that I think this needs to be a discussion item because it should still be, even if it was pulled, the funding should still be in the general fund. It didn't magically disappear. It didn't get spent on anything else because you got another 200,000 sitting there for Campbell Park.
Can Mary answer some of those questions?
Mary, you have,
Can we get a list of all the pulled park projects as well? This is kind of shocking.
Because again, Commissioner King, to your point, I think, yes, they're doing a survey on some of the projects that we need to look at, but this is a project that we know of and we've talked about. That's my only concern about this.
Oh, I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against it. I would just like to know, before we push something forward, what the purpose was for putting it on hold. Might have been a very good reason that we'd go, oh, that makes a difference, and maybe it won't make a difference.
does anyone from staff know why it was pulled? Do you know, Mr. Manning? What a reason, there had to be some discussion that magically we just pulled that off of there.
I was not part of that discussion. That was just relayed to me back in
Mark?
January.
Mark, you said it was under 524603?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, those funds should still be budgeted under there. It's operating. And there is, under there, we have Dupont Lakes building repairs. I don't know if that's the line item you're speaking of. But this is for 2022.
Correct.
That project should still be budgeted, and the fund should be available if there's money available on that line, unless it was spent for some other purpose. You said it was about $20,000?
25 to 30,000 be my guess, yes.
So what's available?
What-
line? Because it's not a capital project.
No, it would be repair and maintenance, correct.
Right, so.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, we'll have to see if there currently is any money available on that line, but we can take a look at it and
Okay.
we can do a budget amendment or budget transfer. It's not a huge amount of money. We can probably find something. If not, we can come back to the commission and do a budget amendment.
I think Commissioner King is correct in that we need to know why this item was pulled. Was it part of a package of doing repairs for the buildings? Was that all line under there? And it was all taken out. What is the cost on that line item 524603? What a dollar amount is there?
I think we need to take a look at it because that line item, Mark, is repairs and maintenance for a building. So I don't think that would have been, unless it's, okay. So, yeah, I know, but you go to 610 then. So it's probably under a different line item, which,
Madam Mayor?
under 610, which is repairs and maintenance other. Right now, there's $16,000 available. Click on this here and see what was budgeted.
Madam Mayor, would it be fair, and to your point, King, not necessarily, if we can have consent at least to look into it?
Arrow over.
I would think maybe that, Stacy, is that what you're asking for, is to see if there's consent to look into this so you can come back with a reasoning?
So my understanding originally was it was not in this budget. You were looking to put it in the 2023 budget, given that it may have been. I think we just need to take a closer look at this for where it is in the 2022 budget. I do also want to clarify some of the
here it
parks
is.
projects.
Okay. Where's the, let's scroll down. Approved statements, was it? Yeah, there's $30,000 that's in the budget and is under repairs and maintenance other.
Correct. 524603.
So the funds are available unless you were given direction not to do that project?
That was direction that was relayed to me, correct?
Well, the funds are available. I
Right.
guess you just have to have a conversation with Mr. Peters.
Correct.
Okay,
That-
so there's nothing that we need, is there money left in that line? We'll figure it out. So it's not really a budget issue then?
Again, as the mayor said, the city manager told us back in January there was a bunch of projects he wanted to put on hold for
Correct.
the ABM study, and I'm guessing that was one of them because that's what was relayed to me.
Okay.
So,
So
I would,
if I could
Madam,
just-
Madam Mayor, I would ask for consent at least to look into it and come back with a response. And if the dollars are there, why were they moved? And let's move forward. So just asking for consent to look into it.
Okay, are you good with that, Stacy?
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at this matter. I just wanted to clarify that a lot of the projects that we paused for 2022 that had been budgeted, so some of them are going to fall into maintenance projects, which is going to be your operating funds. A lot of them, though, are falling in your capital projects, so that's a kind of a separate pot of money that we're looking at. So those funds will remain in there as we work through prioritizing where our needs are, where our monies are going to best be spent so we can plan for the future.
Okay, so what we're going to do is see if there's consensus to have Stacy relay to Mr. Peters that we would like to have clarification on this item as to seemingly the funding is in the budget, why was it pulled, and what was the reasoning that we are not doing this with these fields. Commissioner King?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramos?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Vice Mayor?
Yes, I have a question though, Mayor.
Okay, let me just go through the consensus
Sure.
thing first. Commissioner Bradford? Yes. Commissioner Sosa? Okay, Vice Mayor?
Yes, wouldn't that decision have come to the dais for us to know that these projects, even though they were approved, are being taken out or putting a stop to it since it was already approved and the funds were there?
I think it depends on, I think with Park and Rec, we had a lot of issues with repairs, with the building issues, and then when we brought the company in to go ahead and look at that, I think that's why a lot of those projects were paused. Am I correct? Instead of going forth, I know for sure the Campbell Park and some of the other ones were put a pause on because circumstances changed. And I think we need to find out, was this under that, or was this a separate item, and why? Why? I don't know. No answer. You don't know.
not sure. It was relayed to me back in January.
Okay. So you have consensus to go ahead and delve into this, and please bring it back at the next commission meeting, or if you find anything out at the end of tomorrow's meeting if we have time. Otherwise, Monday night in the manager's comments for an update, please, so that we know where we stand. Back on the board, Commissioner King.
Yeah, Mark, everybody has their favorite park. Mine is obviously down at Veterans Park. I've got a couple of questions, though. You said that all the parks have cameras in them now.
Yes.
The cameras at Veterans Park stopped working a while back. They, from what I understand from talking to, Mick Cotton and those guys down there, the cameras were taken out. The housing, there's a housing there, but he says there's no camera there and it hadn't been working since they came to take it out, and it's never been replaced or repaired. I don't know if that's the case, whether maybe they don't know, but they don't have any way of seeing any cameras or a screen like they used to see before. So that's one issue that maybe needs to be looked at. I'm not sure that the cameras are working there.
The cameras are offline there. The IT department is troubleshooting that. The cameras that feed that go into the office at Veterans Park. So whenever we need to access that, we have to go to Veterans and get a hold of the mayor, the former mayor, or Mick to go look at those cameras. I know IT is troubleshooting those issues. A couple of them are offline, and they are working on that, yes.
Okay. And the other thing is, we know where the new pavilion is coming. That pavilion at one time had both fans and lights in it. Are those in the budget to be put back in when we put the new pavilion in? Because I think they should be there. And we actually were there today, had a ceremony for all of you that missed it, it wasn't advertised as well as it should have been, but there was a distinguished disposal American flag ceremony there today for Flag Day. So we had a discussion about that today, and I know that at one time they did have 3 big paddle fans in there, and there were some lights. They failed, and they were removed, and they were never put back. So if it's possible, I don't know whether we got a budget for that or whether it's can be included in what we've already budgeted for those improvements, but some ceiling fans, and there is electric.
There is infrastructure there for electric, so if that's the will of the commission and the city manager, we can certainly add the lights back along with a couple fans as well, and that would not be something that we need to go before you guys. That would be under our repair and maintenance budget, so that's
I would
something we
hope
could
maybe
add.
that the commission would give consensus to put lights and some ceiling fans into that pavilion. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner McCool?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2 things. I mentioned it before, and I'm just putting it out there for consideration. I don't need an answer, but I just need to get it out there. Campbell Park, again, talking about Campbell Park, I know that the kids play football out there on the field. You know what I'm talking about, right? And they play from one light up front. And so if we're redoing Campbell Park, consideration for another light back in the back of the field there, because it's dark back there where they practice. You know what I mean? When you go to that back corner.
So you're wanting to add some sport field lighting to Campbell Park?
One light. One light would be sufficient for the field because there is light cast from if we're looking at the field this way, and here is, the building there, there's that light there at the basketball court.
There's 2 lights on the,
There's not enough light in the back of the field there. If we're going to let them play football there, I don't know what the arrangement is, but what I'm saying is there's not sufficient light for safety at night. And I know that it closes at dark, right?
Yes. It's one of the last parks we close as part of the route. They do at nighttime, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm just putting it out there because they've been out there and I'm just talking about for safety issues, so I'm putting that out there. Another thing, could you reiterate what you talked about? If we need to access the cameras at Veterans Park, what do you have to do?
We have to contact the former mayor or Mick because that feeds directly into their office. That does not go to any city infrastructure. That goes directly to the Veterans Park building itself. So we have to access them because if we need to get in that building, we have to contact them.
So who owns the property?
The city does.
The city does. Okay. So I have problems not having access to a video feed there, for us, to take care of our people. I understand that they do a fantastic job out there, but I philosophically have a big problem with us not having access to a camera, whether we need to a Nest camera, whatever. We have the technology to do that. But within any of our parks, I would have a problem with us not having access 24/7 to that and us counting on, do we? Okay.
Who has a key, I'm sorry? Because I don't have a key to it, so.
Who's
Sean does
Sean?
have a key? One of our
Who's
parks
Sean?
maintenance supervisors, okay.
Okay.
So
I'm
you
sorry.
didn't know that Sean had a key?
Not to that, I know he had a key to the barn, not to the actual building itself. Because we had agreed back when the building was built that we were not going to have access to that because of the stuff they have in there. So I did not know the former mayor had given him a key. Yes, because of the material in the museum itself, the former city managers and the former mayor decided that we would not have access to that
So I
building.
understand in concept, limited access, right? Right, but if I just want to put it out there, as long as someone from the city, and it's general knowledge that one person has access to it, that's fine. That's when you said that just triggered me. So cameras are a big concern to me, and it's not, I'm just going to put that out there now, not Big Brother, sorry, I don't, you know what I mean, but I'm concerned about drug dealing in the park, because I sit over at my park, Manny Rodriguez, and watch that crap go down, okay? And we should have access to that, and we should have access to give to the sheriff's department when that's seen. So if anything, I'm beating on, I know that sports equipment is important, but so is the safety of our residents as far as any type of violence that might go on or fighting, destruction of park property. I have a beautiful park in Manny Rodriguez Park, but some, you know, less than responsible resident has seen way to crash the bars there. There's stuff that goes on there, and I want cameras as a commissioner in the parks to make sure that we have that visibility.
And we have a pretty good turnaround with the sheriff's office on vandalism and issues like that. It's usually 24 hours where they get the video of something that occurs at one of our facilities.
Okay, well, just putting that out there so the public knows for their welfare that we have them covered. You know what I'm saying? And for criminal activity, we got you covered.
So to piggyback on that, because that was one of my questions, you're saying that not all of our parks have the fiber optic. How many of our parks are locked into the sheriff's department's cameras? Because I know that's an option, that the sheriff's department, we can lock right into that. It was, the sheriff said.
I believe there's 3. I believe it's Dewey, West Cryle, and firefighters.
So
that I'm
only
aware of.
3?
That's the only ones I'm aware
And is there a reason the other ones aren't?
Like I said, most of them are standalone systems where we have to go to the site to actually retrieve the video. We can't pull it up here like we do at City Hall for those 3 parks.
And is there any future plans to connect once we see all the cables going in everywhere around the city now?
I believe the IT department has a plan to eventually connect all the parks to fiber. I think that's a 5-year plan, though, 5 to 10-year plan.
Madam Mayor, that has to be a priority.
I agree.
That has to be a priority for our public safety, with the amount of people that we have moving into our city, with the, we have the technology to do this, is what I'm saying, and you should have that, Mark. You know, you should have access to that, a good secure or camera system. We should have that, so it has to be a priority. It's public safety, you know what I mean?
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I've had a conversation with the city manager, I forgot what he called the system, the NSACE or something.
Yes.
He was looking at possibly doing that, and that would help connect as well. But I don't know what the project is for that, what the timeline is for that. Is that a 5-year plan? I'm not sure.
Well, wherever a lot of people gather, which is in our parks, right, in a communal way, we need to have that safety issue addressed. I would like to see cameras, and that, whatever that entails, if safety, top on the list of parks. Again, the fields are fantastic, but we also need safety on the fields for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Bradford?
I'm just going to put this out here. I'm agreeing with the vice mayor. Our responsibility is to do this budget. And this is not the first time I'm hearing this project was changed, this project was canceled, this project was put on hold, this. We're not being informed. And I'm extremely disappointed in that I shouldn't be hearing it as secondhand, and it's not the first time I'm hearing it. You know, we have a responsibility for this budget. At this time, I don't even know what projects are in progress, what projects have been stopped, what projects are going forward. Where's this money at?
In the general fund?
There it sits. But yet we're being asked, don't decrease it this much, we're afraid of this. I have to say, when I read this budget over the weekend, I was a little disappointed in the information we're being given here, because in the past, we're given a breakdown of what those operating expenses incur. And I'm being given, here's a blank ticket, y'all have a good time. And I don't think it's staff. I'm not going to blame staff for that. And usually staff's up here presenting what they need and what they want, and we're working with them. I'm just a little disappointed that this is all we're being given. And I understand this is preliminary, but even in our preliminaries, we've been given a pretty detailed list of items that are in a budget so that we can determine yes or no. And now we're just being asked, here's a blank ticket, go ahead and approve it, and we're going to go from there. We don't know what we're approving. And I'm not yelling at you, Mark, please don't take it that way. My frustration is why do we even sit up here and do this if it's just going to be vetoed by somebody else? So if, I know the mayor has asked on many occasions that, we need to be getting true ups periodically. I think we've had one, but I don't think we've had one since. And, to me, this is like, I hope this is preliminary, and that we're going to actually get a breakdown of what's in these operating expenses and what's in these other allocations, because every department I've gone through, not one of them gives us a breakdown, not one. So what we're approving is very preliminary. I hope you guys understand. So for items to be rejected out of here, I mean, we don't even know what we're approving. And it's never been like this.
Commissioner, I thought that was what we were going to be doing as we move forward with this process, was to have the breakdown near the end to see exactly what was what, so that we could make any determination as to whether or not we were going to change things or leave them the way they were, add something, take something out. I thought that was coming in our next meeting.
That's usually
That's what
what
I
this
understood.
is my understanding, is usually we're going through these meetings, and this is where we say, okay, this is how much, well, let's do this, let's take this out, So that's what I'm saying. I hope we're not approving anything at this point, because I can't approve just a blank ticket for any department at this point. I mean, we need to know what's been done, what's put on hold, what's what.
I think that this was indeed the 30,000-foot view, because the line item breakdown comes later. This is just a generalization of how the budget lies, and not the budget, but the buckets of money, as it were, because we're not actually approving anything. This is just an overview, because we have here the line item reviews. That's what you're talking about, the line item reviews that come after that. The line items being after the analysis from the park, all of that stuff, because they don't know what they need to put in that yet. So I've asked the same question, because my residents are like, what kind of, budget? But it's just a big generalization to get it started.
But it's backwards. So right now, we're saying, here's the blank ticket, and here's what we want you to approve, and we don't even know. I mean, it's just been a little backwards for me. So where I'm at is, especially, you're saying this was put on hold in January, these projects.
I can give you a list of some of the projects that have been put on hold besides that.
Well, here's the thing. Let me throw this out real quick, but
Sure.
keep that. The projects were put on hold in January.
Correct.
This did not come before us with the PowerPoint presentation of the blight buildings back in March. When did that come before us? April? So these projects were put on hold prior to that presentation, and prior to it even coming to us on ABM. So timelines aren't adding up. So what projects were put on hold, Mr. Manning?
So you had the Dwight Hawkins football field conversion was put on hold. That was $350,000. We had the Dewey Boster baseball field light upgrade. That was also put on hold to LED lighting. We had the Campbell Park, as the mayor mentioned, Tano boxing building put on hold. And we also had the Kraft building renovations put on hold. And the basketball court for Montecito Park was put on hold as well.
And how much is that total?
Close to $1 million.
How much?
Close to $1 million.
All the projects together?
The ones I just listed, yeah.
Okay, and was there any specific reason we were holding back the $1 million projects?
That was part of the discussions that we had with Mr. Peters back in January about getting the ABM survey going.
Right.
And using that money to offset that back in January. And I believe he brought it to you guys back in February, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so we put those projects on hold so we could afford to do was that to help pay for them?
That was partly to help pay for the survey, and then use that money to help based on the recommendations they provided as part of the carryover.
And Commissioner Bradford, if you look at the Campbell Park building improvement was $200,000, the Kraft building was $100,000.
Correct.
And those $300,000, when they looked at the buildings and saw the disrepair, why would you spend $200,000 on a building to put a patchwork on, and the same with the Kraft building? I can tell you that the discussion regarding the basketball court at, which one is it, Montecito Park?
Montecito,
Was
yes.
also a discussion because of the fact that you don't have parking, and you're going to end up in the same problem that you have at Firefighters Park. There's no parking. I mean, it was put in the budget to do a basketball court there, but where's your lights? Where's your parking? That park is so incomplete right now that how can you put a basketball court there and then you never budgeted for parking, you never budgeted for lights? I mean, that's why that was looked at. Am I wrong, Mr. Manning? Because
So that's a pocket park. That
Right.
park was specifically designed for the people in that neighborhood.
Right.
That's why there would be no infrastructure where you're talking about lights or parking. That was for the people and all the kids that live in that neighborhood.
Right.
Can walk to that park, play basketball, and then walk home. That was the whole idea for that park.
But again, when you do that, as you know in Firefighters Park, and you look at West Crile, you have people from all over the place that come there and play. And basketball is huge in this city. And when you look at that, to me, I'm just going to say it, that park was a disaster from the beginning. I mean, the way it was set up and the way it was done, I mean, the concept was nice, but go by there and see a picnic table and a little something, something going on there. And then you cleared some, you didn't, I mean, maybe it's better now, but if you're going to go ahead and put in a basketball court at a place, and you don't even have, if you think it's only going to attract people that are going to walk there, so, I mean, I understand, I think there was a discussion about that park at one point, was there not, that to put that on hold with this commission? And the other two things, the lights at Dewey, and what was the other one, Mark? The other big one, the lights at Dewey was 300 grand, and the football field.
Field conversion at Dwight Hawkins, yes.
And didn't we do something at Dwight Hawkins? Weren't we doing something else at Dwight Hawkins,
What do you mean?
other than the football field? Didn't we deal with the parking, or weren't we going to do something out there?
No. We already have parking out there. That was done a couple years ago where we added parking.
We just added lights
Something
out
with
there. I
Dwight
think we
Hawkins.
put lights out there at one point.
But anyway, if you look at the 2021, 22 key goals, and you look at their accomplishments, some of them mirror up, and other ones have not been done yet.
Madam
And that-
Mayor.
Go ahead, sorry.
I just wanted to add, so we've been talking a lot about the maintenance of the parks. That was the presentation, I believe, which was in February. We looked at the condition. Obviously, that was an exercise that was worthwhile. We had monies budgeted for the craft building. We're now being told that the craft building is not even a building that we can salvage. So that was a good move. One of the other things, in addition to just the maintenance currently of these parks, is that after this budget was put in place and all of these things were decided, there was also a decision to contract with an entity to start your parks accreditation process. And part of that process is finding out, what does your community want to see? So there was, and this is the logic, so if this was not conveyed, I apologize, but essentially, you put all of these things right here, and now we're saying, community, what would you like to see? So we kind of put the cart before the horse. So those two things, and they are major things that we're talking about here. We're not putting off taking care of the parks. We actually feel that it's a priority. I do not want the display of this is the condition of some of our parks to overshadow that we do have very nice parks. We're just trying to find what the community wants so that we can prioritize where we spend the dollars that we do have.
Well, Stacy, if I can
Yes,
finish.
ma'am.
That's awesome. And so what you're saying is the projects were put on hold because what we're going to do is have community forums to bring the community in and ask them what they want.
Yes, ma'am. That is part of the process that we need to work through.
Okay. And do we have any time frame on when that's going to be happening?
I'm not sure, Mark,
That'll
where
be in
the
the fall.
contractor is.
That'll be in the fall. That's part of the Parks and Rec Master Plan update that we're going through right now. So that'll be in the fall when we do them community outreach programs.
Well, that's wonderful because I think the community, in each community needs to have input because I know there's a specific district that doesn't have any parks they can take their children to.
So just a few months ago, the contractor was here and presented to the commission what they have found so far. So they're still working through that process. So there will be some community input later on after that questionnaire also. So it's a rather lengthy process. I just wanted to explain. Those two major things are happening. That's why you're seeing the delay in the park projects. So it's not that we don't want to take care of the parks, it's that we want to make sure that we're doing it in a fashion that makes sense, it's efficient, effective, and is addressing the needs of the community.
And Stacy, we are going to be having an additional meeting that's going to be breaking down these expenses and everything in the budget, correct?
So first year through the budget, I'm going to defer to Mary and ask what the next process is here and what is presented to the commission.
I think that John communicated to, and also the ABM representative, that they're working through their priorities that are being set, and they said initially it was going to be October.
Mary, I'm sorry. If I understand your question, you're asking for every department, how much detail?
I'm asking for an every department breakdown. Before we finalize any budget, specifically myself, I would like to have a breakdown of what we're actually approving, not just a sum,
Yes, you would like a line item for each
a
department.
line item
to which-
breakdown of what we are approving.
And that can be provided to you. I don't have the budget calendar in front of me.
Are we having a budget meeting on that?
Yeah.
Mary, when did our budget book come out last year? When did this one, it says approved 920, but when did this line item come out last year, the workbook come out last year?
It came out, I believe, in July.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to see, we had a budget, we had the schedule. I had it here. There was a budget summary.
June 10 last year, okay, is when the line item came out, when the proposed budget workshop, June 10, this one here, okay, was put out. So that's what we're asking. You're asking about this one, Commissioner?
Which we should be having right about now.
Yeah.
We're at June 14th.
And we had a second one, we had another one come up, I think, after that.
Right, so we went through that line item, and then we broke it down, and then we went to the next one. And what we're being given right now is a lump sum approval of just, here you go. I have a problem with that. And I don't mean to be a troublemaker here, but we're the ones held responsible for this budget. And next year, when we're questioning items, we're going to be told it's in the budget, but if we're not given the budget, we don't know what's in the budget. What did we approve? I feel like who's on first, who's on second?
Do you have the rest of the budget hearings after this? Anything scheduled, Mary?
I'm just taking a look at our budget calendar right now to tell you when we can get you that next.
Madam Mayor, can I just ask real quickly, do you mind, Commissioner? In reference to part of, because we keep going back about a list that we're going to get, and if I understand correctly, I think it was yesterday, our consultant, what's the time frame? Because that's going to play a role, as well as when we're going to get a line item, if anything, in reference to parks and what they're recommending or not recommending. So do we have a time frame of when that's going to get back to us?
I believe they're looking at it mid-August. Early to mid-August. They're on phase 2 right now of the assessment, so I believe it's going to be in early to mid-August.
And Commissioner Ramos, I'm not talking about just this department.
No, I hear you.
I'm
but I
talking
wanna take
about
advantage
every
since we're-
department that we're being held accountable for, you know what I'm saying?
Totally agree, but I figured since we're in Parks and
Right.
Rec,
Oh,
and
no,
we keep talking
definitely.
about this list, it'll be good to know when we're going to get.
Well, and I'm excited that we're going to get a community forum and community input. I think that's important.
Commissioner Sosa, do you have a question that you want to wait for while we look at that? Do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, well, basically, I'm in the same place as Commissioner Bradford. Last year, we received this budget book, and it had a line item breakdown added at this time. Last night, I actually asked Mr. Peters after the meeting if he could give me a line item breakdown. Unfortunately, he's not here today. So that is something, I mean, this to me, it's just a basic overview of numbers, but it really has no meat to it. I mean, I have no idea what I'm approving.
It says right here.
Commissioner Sosa?
That's what we're talking about.
We can provide the commission with a paper copy of every line item for you tomorrow, for you to review,
All right, thank you.
okay?
And because, I mean, right now, I'm looking at the Parks and Recs, and between the two budgets,
We'll
we're
have a
looking at
copy
about
for you,
$9 million for fiscal year '23 is $9 million. And basically, I have two pieces of paper with two numbers on them.
Well, I'm asking how accurate is that going to be if they have not finished the assessment, and at least in Parks and Rec, if they've not finished the assessment of what projects they're going to put into the budget, how do we yay or nay that without that information? So,
Well,
again,
that's what I'm saying. That's what it's here. You got almost $9 million worth of expenses here for Parks and Recs, but there's nothing there. So how do we know what we're actually going to be approving until August?
it was my understanding that we were having other budget meetings or workshops after this. This wasn't the only budget workshop that we were having. This was an overview. I mean, that was my understanding. Because
What the budget is going to look like. What we're talking about specifically is still coming up. The itemized list is still coming because we have all of the stuff that ABM is doing. Has to be, some of that stuff all needs to be in the budget. And we're setting aside some money so that they can do their work, so that when they get that assessment out, or what they're going to be doing, we'll know what's allotted to each one of those projects. We haven't gotten there yet.
They don't
This
even
is
have a schedule.
simply an overview of what we're looking at for the coming year.
Vice Mayor, did you have a question?
Well,
I do have a
To answer that, last year at this time, we had an overview with a breakdown. I can understand Parks
But
and
last year
Rec
at
being
this time,
separate.
we weren't having
So-
studies done either, pre-budget or right at budget. I mean, in all
Okay,
reality, it
that's
should have been
one
done
department, though. What
earlier.
about the rest?
The ABM study is not just for parks, though. The ABM study is for all city facilities, fire stations,
correct.
Public Works, Deltona Water, Eastern Water Plant,
Everything.
et cetera.
It's all the facilities.
Hall.
Yes, it's all
Every
city
single
facilities.
department, every single building, every single park is all being evaluated. So you can't have a specific number for each line item until we know exactly what needs to be done.
And I think the bigger ask and the most prudent ask would be to ask ABS to chop. That would be the ask. I'm not trying to put pressure, but in reality, look at where we're at heading into budget season. This is a 30,000-foot view, but they need to finish that the assessment first. We
And
don't have
Commissioner,
complete information.
That is not our job. That is the job of the city manager. We are not managing the contractors. We are not managing staff. Our job is simply to direct the city manager and let the city manager do his job and her job to direct staff and get them doing what needs to be done.
So mote it be.
We don't need to micromanage everything that our managers are doing.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead. Then Vice Mayor, you're on the board. I'm sorry.
Okay, so again, I guess a little bit more clarification. So in your packet for Parks and Recreation, you do have a capital request budget.
Exactly.
This includes your replacement pavilion at Dwight Hawkins for $50,000, your replacement fencing at Timber Ridge for $70,000, the lakeshore improvements of $120,000. This is where you'll also find the $3 million that we're asking to earmark. This is the list that we're waiting for ABM to prioritize. Once we have that information, and Commissioner McCool, we are working with them closely. They are on an extremely tight deadline given the amount of work that we have asked them to provide to us. They are pushing even that August deadline to get that to us, but it is the expectation that we have put before them, and they are working very hard to get that to us. At some point, once we have that information from them, we will be coming back to this commission with our priority list. So we've earmarked the $3 million. We will come back to you with your approval on the projects that are listed and how much the anticipated cost is for those. So we will then allocate that $3 million. By placing that in the budget, it does make it a little bit easier for planning purposes to have those funds available as we move forward. When it comes to the itemized lists, we could certainly sit here and talk about Parks and Recreation and what they have. One of the things that I noted here is that the Parks and Recreation budget is a little misleading in its name. Parks and Recreation is actually Parks and Facilities Maintenance. So I can say to you, here's their line item budget they're projecting for 2023. Repairs and maintenance, $160,500. It includes way more than the parks. So it really is a breakdown. Do you really want to see all of that? Do you want to know that we have to replace toilet paper dispensers? Yes. Yeah. You want to see that?
I don't.
Do every year.
Okay. We can take a look at activities if you want to go over those now, or we can wait till tomorrow. As Ms. Lyson had said, we can certainly give you a line item of everything that's here.
I thought that our next meeting, whenever that was going to take place, was going to be that meeting for line items.
Not just for parks, but for all departments.
I understand.
So I think, Mary, that's what you were looking for, to see when that date is going to be?
Yes, but I think because of the request that you're making tonight, we'll make that available to tomorrow.
How many meetings do we normally have besides looking at?
It's been done in so many different ways. We've done a Saturday afternoon where we've run everything through on a Saturday morning to an afternoon. We've done it in three different times. We've done it in 2 different times. We've had different days and different hours depending on over the time. We've just varied it.
But this is the first time we've had this presentation like
Yes.
this, right?
Yes. We've had, actually, it was going to be 4 nights, 2 hours a night.
When do we have to have it totally gone through to decide for the millage rate?
Mary, the temporary, or the set millage rate, the first one that we have to do for the trim notice is due when? June? No, I mean July.
We have to wait for the July 1st deadline to get
July
the final.
1st.
And then the first, let's see, let me look at the calendar. Yeah, August 4th is the deadline to the property appraiser.
For the trim notice?
Right, so I think we have a meeting scheduled for July 25th. It's not on here, but it's on the,
Tuesday,
we
July
can't
5th is
wait.
the first one.
yeah, I'm sorry.
And then,
So how are we
Right.
supposed to
Well,
wait?
and this is what we're going to discuss tomorrow. We're going to need some direction from you as to what millage rate the budget should be prepared at. It's not the final, but we need direction from you because it's quite lengthy to produce this budget book. So we need some direction for you tomorrow, which we'll discuss that after you've had a chance to go through all the departments.
Are you done? No, tell me you're done.
okay, Vice Mayor?
I have one very simple
oh, sorry.
question, Mark. I didn't see Lake Gleason Park there. Is it in the project?
There's not a capital project scheduled for Lake Gleason, no. That is a park where we have a pavilion, a boat ramp, and a swing set, but we do not have any capital projects scheduled for Lake Gleason Park.
That's the part that floods, right?
I'm
Or
sorry.
in that area. But we'll talk about it when it comes up.
But to go back to what ABM, I think they'll have their data compiled probably within the next 2 weeks, and then they'll really dig down into deep dives to expedite that report to you guys. I think we've got 2 more weeks of going out with the consultant experts, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner McCool? No? Commissioner Bradford?
I just want to confirm dates here. So we literally, by July 1st, have to have a solidified okay through the budget on turning it in, and then by August. And we're talking, they're not even going to be done with all the departments consultation-wise before the time we have to set the millage rate. I don't see where we can wait on them to do this, and that's 2 weeks from Friday is July 1st. So that's, again, it takes me back to, we're supposed to be up here setting a preliminary, and this is what I'm given as a breakdown. So I'm still haven't got a thorough answer, and I don't like being laughed at when I ask for information that we're being held accountable for. So, Mayor, did you ever get an answer to when are we going to get the book to go through it so we can do an educated setting for the trim?
Don't we have a meeting scheduled for July 25th? But there's going to be a schedule on August. We use most of the month of July to prepare the book. So you'll have a meeting, the first meeting is on August 1st. How do I get this? Let's move this page up.
I think, Commissioner Bradford, what you're saying is that by the July 5th, we have to have the first meeting to set a temporary millage rate, the preliminary millage rate. Am I correct?
Right.
And then the second reading in July, where we solidify the preliminary millage rate. And the preliminary millage rate is the highest we can go. We can't go any higher when we set the permanent millage rate in August.
Correct.
So you have to go, you're basing the millage rate on this budget that's presented right now. And Commissioner Bradford, you're saying that you want to have that itemized budget before you make a decision on the preliminary millage rate. We always have. So, Mary, you said you can get the itemized budget books tomorrow?
That is correct.
Would you then please provide that to those commissioners, everyone that wants an itemized budget book? And you're going to have to schedule another hearing? Everybody, exactly. When we're looking at the calendar, we're going to have to schedule one more budget meeting. We have the 15th tomorrow. We have a commission meeting on the 20th. What is on the schedule for the 27th for the workshop? Anybody know? So let's make that a budget workshop. Monday, the 27th, that's a standard commission workshop. That needs to be the budget workshop before the commission meeting on July 5th. July 4th is a Monday, so it'll be Tuesday, July 5th. Commissioners, are we good with that to turn the 27th workshop into a budget workshop with the line item budget book and go through that budget? And it can't be 2 hours. It is going to be starting at 5:30 till the night ends, till it's done.
Madam Mayor, if I could just clarify one more time. The $3 million that we're asking for on the capital budget for Parks and Recreation, we will not have a list available.
That's okay.
Okay.
It can be, the $3 million is going to have to be a placeholder, whether the commission does 1, 2, or 3 million or not, or nothing. It's going to have to be a placeholder. Then the commission has to understand you're going to have to put some funding in as a placeholder.
Thank you.
It's just the way it is. It's going to have to be that for this. It's the commission's choice if you keep the 3 million, if you implement that. And Hector, maybe you can give us a better ballpark, not now, don't worry about it tonight, but on that 27th, if you have any, we're looking at 3 million enough, is it too much? I mean, not now, don't worry about it now, unless you have something that you want to clarify, but we just need to have a ballpark figure, and if 3 million is good, then we have to understand that's where it is. It's better to have it in the budget and have a surplus than not have enough. That's the reality of it. You'd rather estimate the placeholder high and be able to cut and have a surplus. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think if there were more Mark Mannings available, we would be able to get through this faster. He's with us every day, literally just about every day. We've got people on site that are walking facilities, walking parts, trying to identify what the issues are and what the solutions are. So it's just a time-consuming process for us as well as for Mark. And again, if there were more Marks, we could probably get through it quicker. My impression, and John will have to speak to this, when we look at your facilities, look at your parks, you're probably looking at, and again, this is just a complete swag, but you're looking at tens, millions of dollars that could be spent to upgrade everything that you're talking about. I think what John is doing is he's putting a cap. He said, we're only going to spend $3 million for all the things that you want, from cameras to ADA compliance to LED lighting to additional lighting, things that you're talking about today. He's saying it's a $3 million cap, so that we have to kind of shrink what we're looking at to fit in that budget, in that line item, in that budget item. The projects are going to be, presented to the staff and to yourself, so you can pick and choose which ones you want to use that fit into that budget. But those will be, what we're doing now is identifying the needs, the priorities, and then for you to say, okay, those, what of those things do we want to fund in that $3 million range? I hope that helps.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner McCool?
And that does, and the point was not to try to micromanage. It was to try to get that, that picture of what that is. For me, I understand that this year's budget is different than last year's budget, but in looking at what we spent line items on, comparing that to the lack of information, that's just where I was, right, using last year's line item to kind of see where our percentages were, right, comparing. So I absolutely understand what Commissioner Bradford is talking about, and was certainly not trying to push y'all through, right, but to have as much information as possible, because I guess after the fact, we're going to find out what is important to the residents, right, what we allocate that money for, and that was my point, because the question bears to reason also in asking the public, here's our budget, what is it you want to see gone? You know what I mean? Because that's what it's going to come down to, what my people tell me they want to see. Cameras might not be important to them. I don't know. But again, I'm trying to understand, so I understand what the commissioner's talking about. I wasn't trying to certainly micromanage anybody into, you know what I mean? That's all I wanted. Thank you.
Well, and I think that the commission, Stacy and Mary, wants a line item budget. They want the line item budget with the understanding that things like the park implementation projects are a placeholder, and certain other projects are a placeholder. If you look at this past year, we have put on hold Campbell Park, we've put on hold the Craft Building, we dumped 2 Echo Parks. Okay? Who could have foreseen that? Am I right?
I'm sorry.
With the two Echo, the parks with the Echo funding, what was the 2 that we?
Oh, the nature parks? Yes, you guys have put those.
Yeah.
Yes, correct, yes.
So we eliminated those 2 by commission decision to not spend that money. So when you look at, your budget is always going to be fluid because times change and what you thought was good, and the same with this. You put these things in here, and maybe you're right, Commissioner McCool, that maybe the citizens' discussion is going to be, or what ABM comes out to be, is going to be something completely different. But if we could have that budget book by tomorrow night, have it on the dais for us tomorrow, and then schedule that 27th for a budget workshop. Will that make the commission, will that be good, Commissioner Bradford?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to put us in a crunch, and then is that also going to be available online for individuals that are feverishly waiting to get it?
And Madam Mayor, may I suggest that if we can have the books tomorrow, that they also be put on the city website so that our citizens.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, so
Okay,
they
that's
could
what
go
you're
ahead
saying,
and
okay.
put it on the site so that it's full disclosure and they see it, we see it.
And a copy for the back, please, too.
Because
Yeah, and a copy for the back.
Yeah, not trying to create like extra work for staff, but we hear it. You know
Oh,
what
yeah,
I mean?
we're the ones that
we
get
hear it.
chewed out.
We hear about the, people want to see the toilet paper dispensers, you know what I mean? It's different gradients of who wants to see what, and I'm just saying, because I get dinged with transparency, oh, what is the city hiding? Hiding toilet paper. But they have the right to see what it is and at least provide input, because that's part of the struggle sometimes, is not being armed with that information. So from our point of view, you know, like I said, I went back to my book from last year and looked at line items. What are we budgeting for? And I understand this year's different, but in the interest of that transparency, we get the emails and the calls and the social media stuff, you know what I mean? So thank you guys for doing this. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Stacy.
Okay, that wraps up Park and Rec. I don't see anyone else on the board. Everyone good? We'll move next to, the next is the center. Chris? Or Stacy, or who's handling this one?
Mr. Chris Hallett is here for you folks.
Good evening, Commissioners, Madam Mayor. So, basic overview, personnel has gone up just a bit. Cost of living, everything. Operating expenses has gone up a little bit. We've tried to tighten our belt on a lot of the stuff for operating expenses and bring that down as much as we can, because we did increase in 2 areas, and you'll see that when you get the line item. One of the areas that we were looking to increase in is the center hosted events, our signature events, and also asking for a little bit more for repair and maintenance and stuff. As the building gets a little older and we're out of warranties on everything, the repair and maintenance bills are starting to add up a little bit. So just trying to keep the budget in line for operating expenses and keep it around the same numbers, but that's about it. For any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Commissioner McCool?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Craig, Chris, do you have any, like, what the sales percentage is up, just the percentage of sales for this?
What do you mean
last
by
year?
percentages?
So say that sales for I'm going to use flat numbers, say sales last year were 100,000, and this year, what was that percentage jump from last year to this year?
I don't know the percentage, but last year we ended at about 262,000. So far this year, we're at 295.
Okay.
With 3.5 months left, so I'm hoping to end around 360 to 375.
Okay.
Our budget was at 330,000.
Okay, so the sales benchmark that the center is going for, between 5 and 10%?
Correct. Yes.
This year?
So our budget for next year would be 360,000 over the 330 this year was our budget.
What about our occupancy, the percentage that's grown? Do you have that? So say last year we had booked for 250 days, I'm just saying 250 days. Where are we at with that many days? Because I understand revenue sometimes doesn't equate how much how much occupancy.
Correct.
Can you
I
speak to
don't
that?
have last year's numbers with me now. I do have, so far year to date, we have hosted 607 events.
Okay.
And that's since October 1st until today's date. And booked on the books since for this fiscal year has been about 760 events for already completed and for future bookings. So
At some time, can you just give me the comparison, please?
Of course.
Before, budget starts, that would be fantastic. That's it, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bradford?
Chris, I just want to say you guys are doing a great job down there. You're on target to beat your goal. That's awesome. I'm happy to see your projections. You guys are doing it incremental and realistic, because I think the first time we got them, we were like, whoo, a little over. So, and, I'm hearing a lot of great reviews on the center now, and I think you've gained a lot of popularity. So y'all have done a fantastic job, and I'd like to keep these numbers going up. So great job.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions? So, Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah. You just answered the 1 to 6 month projected. Hey, have you guys looked at any fees on some of the things you do? Because I keep seeing the ads for the bonkers at $5 a person. I know last year when we talked about budget, we were going to look at maybe structuring those fees to where they generated some revenue, because I'll be honest, I went to bonkers back in 1990 and I was paying about 10 or 15 bucks back then.
Right.
So my question is, the way we do it is we pay for everything, and we pay bonkers, and then we just collect what we get off the gate. How much money are we losing each time we host a comedy show?
Actually, bonkers, especially lately, it hasn't really been losing money, because at $5 a ticket, we need about 150 guests to break even on the comedians. And our last 2 months, we've broke 150. But that is a conversation that we've had with Stacy and Mr. Peters about raising the prices just a little bit incrementally, and also looking at our fee schedule again. And for one, we wanted to make it a little bit easier for people to read our pricing structure, because it's very difficult and very complicated to read right now. But we're also looking at some of the prices in some of the rooms as well. So it's something that we've been working on for a couple of weeks now.
Okay. How much do we pay bonkers to host these?
It's $750 a show.
So basically, if you charge $5 at 150 a person, that's only 750 bucks.
That's correct. And then
so we pay
have
bonkers, and then we got all the expensive staff and everything. So technically, it is still losing money.
a little bit, yes. And we have concession sales, and we have bar sales on top of that as well. Okay. So, and of course, there's a charge for bartenders and the product and everything, but we do have those sales to help us offset.
Do you guys ever do like an itemized breakdown of what it costs and how much revenue is generated between the gate and alcohol sales and stuff like that?
Yeah, we do some on our signature events and on our hosted events, yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And can you just tell me, what is the $205,000 for transfers and carryover?
I am not sure what that is.
I can help out there.
Thank you.
I think, or Mary. So there was actually a change that stood out to me also, so I checked with finance on this one. So it went from the fiscal year 2021 from $5,900, and then the following years to $205,000. And really, it was just an update to how we were tracking the depreciation of the building and the equipment. So we'll call it a true up, for a lack of a better term at this point. So really, that's more in line, really, with where it should have been in 2021. That's kind of why it looks like it's really high. But we do the same thing for the center that we do for every other facility, for depreciation, planning for replacement costs for computers and the like.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, I think I asked this question one time, and I don't remember if I was able to get an answer. Do we have a contract with bunkers?
Yearly, yes.
I'm sorry?
Yearly contract,
Yearly
so
contract.
a yearly agreement, yes.
So does that prevent us, well, the city, from hiring other comedians, individual comedians?
Not that I know of, but I would have to go through the agreement just to make sure.
Can you please find out? So let's say we know of a certain comedian that we know is going to fill up the room. Make sure that we don't have a contract with bunkers that's going to prohibit us from doing something like that.
Yes, I'll look into that.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, seeing no more questions, thank you, Chris. I think We are done. And next and last up is general government and the municipal complex. Stacy?
I'm actually going to ask Mary Lyson to handle this one for us.
The general government is similar to like a facilities agreement or facilities use, which is actually administered by Parks and Rec. It is a separate department. There are a few employees, mostly maintenance crew. Then the operation expenses, which Mark may have a little more detail for that. But when we transfer money from the general fund to the other departments, this is where the funds are generated from. So if you notice the transfers on here it's quite significant. It's the money that is transferred from the general fund to the other funds. Like, for example, in 2022's budget, we transfer some money from general fund to stormwater to aid in the mowing costs. The Rhode Island was $3 million that was transferred from general fund to transportation. The municipal complex projects are transferred from this fund to the municipal complex. So this is just where the funds are generated in this department.
Commissioner McCool?
I need to understand, for me and moving forward, like, how is it decided, or who cut the city up into the departments like it is? Because sometimes it's confusing. I understand that we have mowing, I understand that we have facilities maintenance, but for budgetary reasons, like, I need to understand if this is indeed the most resourceful way to do this, I need to understand that from whoever can answer that question for me. Because when we start talking about transferring, I get lost sometimes. Like, I need my pen and I need the flow chart, right, to see that. So I'm trying to understand, in my business department, I have these buckets, right? So can you explain that to me? Can somebody, Bueller?
I guess the easiest way to explain this is these are government accounting standards that all municipalities follow.
So all municipalities follow parks and facilities. It's not Parks and Rec. They don't have a separate maintenance budget or facilities budget?
Well, the way the city of Deltona has evolved, that Parks and Rec just handled the facilities. I think there's conversation right now of possibly moving the facilities maintenance into their own department.
Yeah.
And that might be something Stacy may want to address.
Sure. There are other entities that have it separated out in Volusia County and throughout Central Florida, where they have parks, they have recreation, they have maintenance, they have facilities. At one time, we had brought that up to the commission a few years ago to break it down to 4 different areas, and that was denied.
Stacy?
You want me to go from there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a Parks and Recreation Department, which is really Parks and Facilities Maintenance, which may or may not detract a bit from your parks operations. So there have been some conversations that we've been having, grand scale. Obviously, this is a big apple to take a bite of before we provide something to the commission, but Mr. Peters did touch on this a little bit last night. So when I talk about your Parks Department, right, we really want to take a look at a Parks Department that is able to provide programming for every age range. Guys, your microphone's on. Your microphone's on. Okay, so One of the things that we are taking a look at, and this is what Mr. Peters had talked about last night. So within Public Works, they have taken some strides already in mapping out in the city where the mowing is happening. And when you take a look at these maps, it is a little mind-blowing because, as he said, we have 3 internal departments and we also contract for services. Some of these areas are side by side or right down the block. And it just doesn't make much sense that everything is divided up the way it is. Now, saying that, there are some things in terms of mowing that stormwater is very different than any other type of mowing. And as Mark would tell you, cutting the grass at Dewey Boster is different than cutting the grass in the right-of-way. So we are taking a look at this big picture approach, taking a look at the possibility of creating a department or a division within a department that would be able to focus on all of the mowing operations within the city and all of the maintenance of all of the facilities, all of the parks, the playgrounds, City Hall, all of the other buildings that we have at the parks. So that focus is there. As part of that, also, I believe Mr. Peters talked last night a little bit in terms of inventory control and what that looks like. And that would all be under that department, which would be a huge step in moving this city forward in terms of asset control, your financials, your inventory. So like I said, this is a big bite out of the apple. We are working towards a process to present to the commission for how we look at our departments differently to be more efficient and effective in our manpower use, in our dollar usage. That is going to take some time. And I don't know if Mr. Peters would agree with this or not. This is me projecting forward. So he and I will have to have this discussion. We have been talking about this since I got here, being that it's such a large project and that the budget process here starts in April. It wasn't enough time for us to project to start for fiscal year 2023. Really what we need to do is take at least the next fiscal year, 2023, and look at what this will do department-wise, how we reorganize, what happens with staffing, what happens on the fiscal side so that the finance department can be prepared for presenting a budget to the commission in fiscal 2024 so that when it's time, although we could potentially have people working in that direction, if this is what the commission agrees to, working in that direction so we become more efficient and effective within the fiscal year that we're talking about, this budget, so that budgetarily 2024, what you would see is, boom, we have this new division or department or whatever the case may be.
And that's what I'm talking about, is for us being able with our public to manage the expectation of allocation. You know, and because, like you said, and you said it a couple of times, and that's what my point is, expertise creates efficiency.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's what I'm trying to get for our public, to have that expectation of allocation. If we have building and maintenance, right, then that pocket of money stays there, and these transfers aren't so mind-boggling because you have John cutting Bob's backyard, but then Peter is paying for part of it, and it's like it's confusing at times, you know, to follow the trail.
Okay, this process will not completely eliminate those transfers because you do have your general fund and then you have enterprise funds.
Right, I get that, but I'm just talking about who does what for where and managing that expectation.
Okay.
So that's all I was trying to say, and bringing that up, reiterating again. That's why I brought it up last night and tonight, for us to create those expectations. Thank you. You answered that perfectly for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Bradford and then Commissioner Sosa.
Maybe I missed this. What was the 1.155 million in increases over operating?
What line item are you looking at?
It's on the
Operating expenses.
right up there. on operating expenses?
Operating expenses. So you're actually, I guess the 21-22 budget was 1.4 million. Our actual's 834,000, but we have a proposed budget of close to 2 million. What is that?
If I'm not mistaken, Mary, I believe that was a bunch of cost increases for various items.
Okay. We have 124,000 are for sprinkler inspections and pumping of septic tanks, mat services, dumping services. We have software maintenance for, it's a new recreation software that they are budgeting for. We have $15,000 for tree removal. We have cell phones for the director.
Mary, I'll just look at it in the budget book tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay.
You good, Commissioner Bradford?
Commissioner Bradford, so you're asking for the difference between the current fiscal and the projected, the change in the operating expenses?
Okay, that was for Amazon.
This is where the budget book, when we're doing this, comes in handy because, then we don't have to go through so much and we can kind of see everything. So I'll wait for
The changes, Commissioner Bradford, we have to pay Amazon because that's part of the Amazon agreement.
Is that the payback?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah, I just have a question. You'd mentioned that we had taken $3 million for the Rhode Island extension, is that correct?
That was in 2022's budget.
Okay. Have we utilized any of that yet?
I think that project is in process.
Okay, that's in process. Now, what happened to the other $7 million that was approved at last year's budget? Where's that sitting?
101.1 million was for municipal complex projects, 2.5 million was in parks projects, and 100,000 was in capital replacement.
If I remember correctly, the commission voted 10 million just for the Rhode Island, not for parks and recs and municipal.
10 million, it was for the whole project. Some of that was in the transportation fund, but the general fund supplemented it by $3 million. So the project was 10 million, part was paid out of transportation, 3 million was from general fund.
Right. It's the whole but I thought, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Mr. Peters ask for $10 million be taken from undesignated reserves last year and put it just to Rhode Island?
3 million was from general fund, the rest was paid for from the transportation fund. There was $10 million, but it was for other capital projects, not just Rhode Island.
That's not what was voted on last year. Last year, what was voted on, I thought was 10 million just for Rhode Island. It was coming out of undesignated reserves. It didn't say anything about taking part of that 10 million and putting it into parks and recs or municipal improvements. That's not the way it was voted on by the commission, if I remember correctly.
I'll be happy to go through it's in the budget book, last year's budget book. I'll be happy to go through that with you.
Okay. All right. And just for clarification, we have about 22.6 million in undesignated reserves at the end of September last year, correct?
Yes.
Now, does that include what part of that 10 million is in there that hasn't been used yet?
The 22 million is undesignated, it has not been used. It's available for this year,
Okay,
for fiscal year 2023. That's our starting point.
Because I'm kind of confused, because last year we had 24 million, we took 12 for the economic disaster fund, then we took another 10 million for Rhode Island. That should have taken it down to 2.5 million. But now we're saying that this 10 million came from transportation fund and general fund, and we took that 10 million and we used that for Parks and Rec and municipal?
If you take a look at this first slide that John went through on Monday, this will give you an explanation of what the fund balance is.
Yeah, but I'm curious, what we approved for last year for Rhode Island didn't really go to where it was supposed to go.
It didn't go to where? I'm sorry.
I thought the 10 million that we pulled from undesignated reserves was just strictly for the Rhode Island project.
The 10 million did not come from general fund. Only 3 million came from general fund.
I don't believe, I'll have to go back and watch that meeting, but I don't believe that's.
There's a transfer in on page 223 of the Transportation Fund. There's a $3 million transfer in from the general fund into the Transportation Fund in the budget, in this budget. The one that we're in right now. That was the 3 million.
Right. Yeah, but if I remember correctly, we had 10 million last year that got approved that was supposed to go towards Rhode Island. I'd
Do
kind
you
of like
have
to
your
know where
budget
that
book in
went.
front of you? Because I can direct you to the page numbers.
You're talking about this one?
Yes, in the
This budget
2022
book, right?
budget.
What page number, Mary?
On page 220.
Thank you.
Didn't we use 7,000 of some of the disaster relief fund? I was trying to think that there wasn't.
No, we use that for wages, for
Actually,
wages for
223
public
is
safety, and we use that, the rest is for the water meters, for the second round was for the water meters, the digital meters. That's being done now.
Yeah, 'cause do
I don't
remember
have that on
voting
page
10 million.
220.
Excuse me, go to 223, it's the transportation fund.
That's the one I was on, right?
Okay, so in total revenue, it says transfer in general fund, there's $3 million. That's $3 million for the Rhode Island project, transferred from general fund into the transportation fund.
And if you look at page 225, under 2122 key goals, it outlines the prepare plans and implement the Rhode Island extension for the future FDOT interchange, et cetera.
Are you on page 226, Mayor?
And then 226, you have it all itemized.
Right, and then you'll see your $10 million for the Rhode Island project on that chart.
The total capital outlay was $12,700,000. And that's on page 227 is the verbal breakdown.
Right, it's right here.
Right, 226 is the numerical, but the description is on 227.
Did that answer your question? So you're questioning the whole $10 million then? Yes. Okay, so then if you go to page 273.
What I'm questioning, I thought we voted to take 10 million out of undesignated reserves and allocate it just for Rhode Island. I thought that's what the commission voted on last year at budget time. Am I right or am I wrong? And I just kind of wanted to get a breakdown of where that 10 million went.
Okay, if you want to direct your attention, Commissioner Sosa, to page 102. The this is a summary of the general fund. And if you go to the bottom, it'll show you where all the funds were transferred out of. Towards the bottom of the page, it'll say total transfer out. There's your $10,135,000, and it gives you a breakdown of where that $10 million from the general fund and which account it was transferred to.
Commissioner Sosa, are you looking for it to be on this sheet?
Because that was all done in this budget, this current budget that we're in right now.
Right. But I think he was looking to see, like, on this, where was it at?
Basically, I'm just concerned that I think we voted on something a certain way, and I don't think the funds got used that way, because out of that 10 million, I'll have to go back and review that video again from last year, but out of the 10 million, you got stormwater.
Correct.
I guess LOGT is what?
Local option gas tax, that's the transportation fund.
That's transportation.
So that's your Rhode Island
Unicom
project.
Parks, and then capital outlay was 3 million.
Correct.
All right, my question is, out of all that money, how much has been actually spent on the Rhode Island at this time?
That I can't explain. Ron is saying that money has not been spent yet.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, any other questions on the municipal, general government municipal complex? No other comments? Okay, Stacy, we are done with this budget overview for tonight. Now, to be clear, we're going to have another budget workshop on the 27th. And tomorrow, everyone is going to have a line item budget book up here. And on tomorrow's agenda, we have Public Works, the Transportation Fund, which Commissioner Sosa, I think that would help tomorrow. And then Stormwater, Deltona Water and Sewer, and Planning and Development, the CRA, and the grants. So, then, after that, we will go ahead and work on, Commissioners, if you have any questions, when you get the budget book after tomorrow night's meeting, please schedule meetings with either Stacy or Mr. Peters and the department directors and see where your questions lie for the line itemized things. And if you'll be able to look at the different millage rates in that. Am I right, Mary? You should have the different millage rates set in that line item, correct, in that budget, right? Just like we have now. So you'll be able to look at the budget book and decide if you want to adjust the millage rate, where you're going to have to start cutting. And please come forward on the 27th with those items or those allocations that you feel you want to cut. If there's something in there that you are not comfortable with or want to put off projects, definitely bring that forward so we can have that discussion on the 27th and vet out the entire budget and set the preliminary millage rate then on July 5th. Commissioner Bradford?
So just to clarify, is there any, other than the 27th, any additional budget workshop meetings planned?
There is not any other scheduled.
Thank you.
So the 27th will be a long evening, and we need to vet all that out. And if not, if it does not work for the 27th, then we will schedule it one of the nights after that. We can add on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. We can add on any other night you want for that. You can add on the 28th, I mean, I'm not sure if the 29th, if we have magistrate or not here on that Wednesday, but yes, Stacy? Nothing? Okay. Let me take a quick look here. Nope, the only thing that we have, I don't know that we have a magistrate meeting on the 29th, if you could check and see, because right now, this will give us, by tomorrow, it will give us a week and a half, everyone to go over that line item budget book and mark that baby up, and on the 27th, if there's a desire to start the meeting at 5 o'clock instead of 5:30, If people can get here then, Sandy and Sharon can send out an email to start a half an hour earlier if you'd like, but plan on a long night then on the 27th. And Stacy, whatever is scheduled for that night, I'm sorry, I don't have Janet's calendar. Whatever is scheduled, if there's something scheduled for that workshop, will you please talk to Mr. Peters about resetting that? And I'm not sure what is on there because I don't have usually the June calendar that comes out. Okay? All right, do you need any other direction? Are you clear in what you have tonight? Stacy, good? Yes. Okay, any other comments, commissioners? Then we are adjourned.